2 days after the assault on the Capitol, Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown from Ohio called the attackers domestic terrorists. And he said police hadn't prepared for them the way they had prepared for the Black Lives Matter protests in Washington.
We need to address the gross discrepancy between Wednesday's response and the responses we've seen to peaceful protesters seeking racial justice. This summer, peaceful Black protesters outside the White House were met with tear gas, rubber bullets, a full militarized response, while this week, white supremacist rioters were able to breach the Capitol.
Hi, I'm John Greenberg with PolitiFact. Did the people in charge of protecting the Capitol use a lighter touch than we saw during the summer protests at the White House? It's time for a Truth-O-Meter Minute. There are iconic images from both clashes. Federal police pushed Black Lives Matter protesters away from a church where President Donald Trump was headed for a photo op. Capitol and Washington, D.C. police battled with Trump supporters at the Capitol. No two protests unfold exactly the same way, so let's look at initial encounters with police in both cases. Black Lives Matter protests in Washington started May 29th. That night, sometime after midnight, police dispersed a crowd. The next day, protesters were back. Federal police were ready in full riot gear. Fast forward to January 6th and the attack on the Capitol. Capitol Police eventually threw more muscle into defending the building, but the initial clashes caught them off guard. For Black Lives Matter protesters, law enforcement had officials in riot gear from the start. For the Trump supporters, they did not. In both cases, they did have reason to be prepared. Before the Black Lives Matter protests in Washington, people in Minneapolis, angered by the death of George Floyd at the hands of the police, had stormed a police precinct and set fires inside. Before the march on the Capitol, there were also red flags. On social media, right-wing activists spoke openly about bringing weapons to D.C. and how to avoid police blockades. An FBI report warned of explicit calls for violence. Despite this information, Congressman Tim Ryan, head of the committee that oversees the Capitol Police budget, said a week before the march, Capitol Police assured him that everything was under control.
There wasn't going to be any kind of violence anticipated. First Amendment protests, pretty vanilla. Maybe some dust-ups, maybe issues around people trying to get guns into the District of Columbia where they have very strict gun laws, but absolutely nothing like this.
And with that assumption, the Capitol Police wore their regular uniforms and scrambled to regain control of the situation. Eventually, with reinforcements, tear gas, and flashbang grenades, they pushed the mob back. Time now for the rating. Brown said Black Lives Matter protesters in Washington faced a harsher response from police than Trump supporters who stormed the Capitol. That is true. That's it for this Truth-O-Meter Minute. If you want to get more facts, come to our website, PolitiFact.com. Sign up for our weekly newsletter and stay on top of what's true and what's false.